Started on intros and that kind of thing. Thank you, Liz. While we wait for everybody else to get in the room, Tessa's madly admitting people. So welcome. And thank you so much for joining us during the fifth annual Purpose in Business Week. If you didn't know, 5 years ago, we launched Purpose in Business Week to allow groups that are involved in purpose, want to learn more about purpose, have a purpose milestone they want to share, just to create a real buzz around social purpose in business during this week. So it's always, I think, the third week of November. So keep your eye out. Every year we do this. So that is why we're putting on this webinar today as part of Purpose in Business Week. And before we get going, I would like to acknowledge that I'm working and living in Surrey, British Columbia, Canada, which is the unceded traditional territory of the Semiahmoo, Katzie, and Kwantlen First Nations. So I'm Mary Ellen Shaftsma. I'm the founder and CEO of Pathways and was the co-founder of the Social Purpose Institute at the United Way of BC. I'm here with my collaborator, Tessa Vanderkop, and together we help businesses to define and integrate their optimal social purpose, embed it into their culture, and create purpose strategy. She and I have curated this session for you and invited some of our favorite people here to speak with you today. And I'll introduce you to them in a moment. But we thought we'd focus on women leading purpose. We're women, and as women leaders, we have encountered the challenges that so often pop up in the workplace and are commonly understood and experienced. But also we understand what continues to just drive us to make the world a better place despite any and all challenges. And I believe that kind of leadership needs to happen more and more. And so we are delighted to be hosting this conversation that focuses on these four women who are driving change in their companies, in their sectors, and really in the world, and how they arrived at their journey, what drives them, what gives them hope, the challenges they've faced, and what tools they need to meet those challenges. And really look to the future and how they see the future unfolding as we support more women and leaders of all kinds to lead in the social purpose space. So just a reminder, because I don't know all of you and how familiar you are with what social purpose is. So I'm just going to give you a definition. This isn't really it's not a content session. It's a conversation session. But to get us all level set, social purpose is an organization's reason for being that is its optimal contribution to all people and planet. So it goes well beyond the traditional product or profit purpose or customer purpose, and it goes beyond just philanthropy. It encompasses all of those things and guides and directs all of those things, creates focus for your organization. But social purpose is truly existential. It's why the organization exists in the first place. And then everything else flows from that. So, with that, we are pleased to have with us today the four women leaders in purpose, our guest panelists who lead in a variety of industries. So, first we have Liz McBeth, maybe a little wave, Liz, CEO of Armor Valve. It's a family business that does distribution and manufacturing in the resource industry, and I'll leave it to her when she speaks to tell us a little bit more. Kirsten I'Anson. Kirsten, want to give a little wave? There she is. VP of People and Culture at Community Savings Credit Union. And then we have Eliana Trinaistic, Director of Social Purpose, Impact, and Culture at MCIS Language Solutions. It's a social enterprise that, by the way, recently, just weeks ago, won the inaugural Outstanding Social Purpose Company of the Year award at the Greater Purpose Conference. So congratulations again. And Mo Duffy, founder and editor at Pownell Street Press, which is a small hybrid publisher based out of Prince Edward Island. And we know that conversations like this often spark ideas about your own journey with purpose. And so if that happens today, jot them down and jot down your questions. We will have time at the end for questions. So please put them in the chat and Tessa will manage those for us at the end. And just to note that at Purpose Pathways, for many years, we have been helping leaders and organizations define and activate their social purpose. And we know that it's events like this where inspiration happens and where the desire to create greater change because of your business comes into place. So feel free to reach out to us if you have any questions, want to learn more, just want to explore the idea for your own business. So, enough about us. Let's jump in and hear from these four purpose powerhouses. Um, so we are here to just have fun and share inspiration. And again, we'll be taking questions at the end, so put them in the chat, please. We didn't get any in advance, so we'll just jump right in today. So, my esteemed panelists, let's begin. And Mo, I thought we'd start with you because I think you, of the four, are at the earliest stage of your purpose journey.
Yeah,
And so let's start with you and maybe start with your company's social purpose statement, and then tell us a bit about what led you to purpose-driven leadership and how it shapes how you do business now.
sure. Thanks, Mary Ellen. And thanks for having me here, and Tessa. So I run a little boutique publishing company, and our social purpose is we exist to tell brave stories and to be a connection for community and to be a light for community and connection. So really, my partner Genevieve Lachlan and I were kind of driven to do purpose work because we were doing purpose work already. So just she's kind of the marketing salesperson and I'm the editorial director. So when we came together, we really wanted to share women's stories. So we have a nonfiction press and we also publish kids' books. And we work with all kinds of people, but really to get their stories out there, right? So if they have kind of a brave story, we have two streams. So we publish traditional books, but we also publish hybrid projects. So it's kind of a mix of both. But it really is, we kind of got into it because, we were in that space already, and really social purpose kind of gave us a language and a framework really to kind of discover more and do more of a deeper dive into social purpose, to really kind of look into our own platforms and our own relationships, and even with booksellers and reps and distributors and authors and community members, and it really kind of gave us some really kind of opened the channel, I guess, for us to do a deeper dive into social purpose, which is really exciting for us. So we've been in the game for about a year. We've been yeah, I guess we've been a year, probably started with Tessa about this time last year.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
I love it. I remember being at your sort of stress test session for your
Yeah.
newly minted purpose, and I think I might have gotten a little misty-eyed because
Yeah.
it's really beautiful, brave stories that need to be told to
Mhm.
bring more light to the world. I'm paraphrasing, but
Yeah.
that's what I get out
Yeah.
of that. Love it. Thanks, Mo. So let's just go through all four of you first, and then let's let a conversation spark. So let's see, Eliana, let's go to you next. Your purpose statement and why you embarked on this and what difference it's made for your business.
Yeah, we are non-profit social enterprise, but essentially a non-profit. Our purpose is to uphold the human right to be informed, heard, and understood. And what happened, this purpose, it sounds like a therapy almost. I'm thinking now, going back, what happened in the organization. But essentially, we were going through this process of liberation, emancipation from government grants. And then at some point, we emancipated ourselves, and now we can say proudly that 98% of our revenue comes from fee for services. But as we were going through this process, there was some sort of a tension between our mission and what market expected us to say about ourselves. And then even 2015, between 2015 and 2019, we were searching for some sort of a tool that will connect this messaging and, market story, our personal story, for our focus on values, really, to say we are not here only to create a value, but we are here to create value that means something to people on the planet. And then we came across Social Purpose Institute in 2021, I believe. It took us a couple of years to go through the program. What was really cool, what happened to us is that our purpose it was part of our organizational culture. It just emerged. We conducted 15 consultations with mostly internal stakeholders, some external. Our purpose was created based on majority vote. So it was no consultants, no people from the outside. People had to agree on wording. And then we had this critical seat or fire seat at the conference, and they just updated one little word. And so everybody bought into the statement right away. What I think was another pivoting point when we embraced the governance transformation, we went into this whole exploration of ISO purpose governance. And then we had the champions on the board. So I guess this gave us additional sort of framing, the governance, decision-making, social purpose framing. So I think at this point, everybody's on board. And I guess we are just living what we lived before, but with the joint statement or way to express what the essence of this is.
Right. That's fantastic. Thanks, Eliana. I'm hearing already some themes between the two of you that it gave sort of a frame or framework to what you're already doing, and really what you needed to do was tease out what was already sort of the soul of your organization and just make it explicit and articulated so that everybody can come along with you. So that's awesome. Thank you. I'm going to go to Kirsten next. Your social purpose and why, basically. Why?
Thanks. So yes, I'm Kirsten I'Anson. I work for Community Savings Credit Union. Our social purpose is that we exist to unite working people to build a just world. Like these wonderful ladies who've just gone ahead of me, it very much social purpose gave us a way to crystallize who we are and how we talked about ourselves. And I think of this in quite a funny way because when I first joined, I joined because I was like, this is an organisation that refused to separate values from decisions. But at that point, we weren't a social purpose organisation. I came from an organisation which held 150,000 people in it, and this is a 100-person size organisation. So on paper, not that exciting for me, until I started speaking to the people who worked here, the CEO, the executive team, a group of people who really, truly cared about the members of our credit union. And I remember in the first week spending some time in branches, getting to know people and coming home and talking to my partner about it. And I said, yeah, like everyone's so friendly. They treat the members really, really well. And everyone knows their dogs by name. And that was something I kept saying. Everyone knows the dog's name. And I was like, okay, I've got to stop saying that. And going through the Social Purpose Institute really gave us a way better way to talk about what we do, who we are, and what we stand for. And, it wasn't new, but what was new was our ability to articulate it in a way that was meaningful for members and for our team internally. And as someone who's in a position looking at people and culture, I very much care about how our team feel about purpose. Our social purpose was actually put together by the team excluding the executive team, and that was done very purposefully. That was to make sure that we were really getting the essence of who this organisation was, not telling the organisation who you are, who we are. And that worked incredibly well for us. And, talking to you, Mary Ellen, about this earlier this week, it's no coincidence for us that in the last 5 years, alongside our purpose journey, that we've grown year in, year out. And it's a very challenging environment for a small financial institution, as you'll all be aware. And we really can see that growth in alignment with our social purpose products with the advocacy work, that the traction we've got on social media from talking about purpose.
Yeah. Awesome. Well, we can't wait to hear more about that, Kirsten. Thank you. And you're right. You're so right. Without top leadership commitment to this, it's not going to go very far within the organization. And I remember your CEO, Mike Schilling, and some of the senior VPs participating and leading the process and involving the whole organization. So, very well done. And obviously, to the effect that you wanted, that would be embedded really deeply in the whole company. All right, now over to you, Liz. Armor Valve
I guess I
purpose.
know it's my term.
Yeah,
Yeah,
right.
my
Sorry,
time.
somebody has to go last.
So I'm Liz McBeth from Armor Valve. Our purpose is to transform infrastructure for a healthy, thriving planet. And we're a family business. I'm the second generation. My parents founded the business, and I think um, that when you're founding a business, you have a pretty clear view of what you're trying to do and why, the problem you're trying to solve. But as businesses kind of evolve and grow, sometimes you can lose sight of that purpose. So our journey to purpose was really about rediscovering our roots and maybe building on the legacy of my parents. They very much were quality obsessed because the products that we sell go into dangerous working environments. And the thing it was kind of deeply ingrained in me is that nobody else's family should ever come to harm because of something that our family business recommended. And so the new, I guess, legacy that I'm building on top of that, and on top of the wonderful culture that my family, that my parents introduced in the business, is really looking at the role that industry plays in our economy, but also in the well-being of people and planet, and wanting to be a part of the solution that guides industry towards more circular, lower emitting, um, uh, less wasteful processes. And so, from that point of view, we are also Social Purpose Institute graduates, and we used the UN SDG framework to identify a purpose that connects with what our business actually does. And it's really become deeply embedded in the organization. We used a consultative process to define it, engaging many stakeholders. In addition to the wonderful cohort, I think MCIS and we were in the same cohort. And it's really become that decision lens for our company. And I love what Kirsten said about not separating values from decisions, because when you make decisions that are not guided by your values or that run counter to your values, um, well, I just don't even understand how that could be done, I guess. So it really grounds us and grounds our decision making in improving the industry that we operate in.
Yes. I actually often use Armor Valve as an example, a surprising example of a type of company that has a social purpose, because it's not an immediate connect between industrial valves and making the world a better place, right? So thank you for that wonderful example that you give. And so let's just sort of open it up to a conversation. I mean, I hear a lot about the framework. It gave you the language, helped you articulate what was already there and bring it out into the light. And also how it's deeply embedded internally and externally. So maybe let's go there. What have been the differences you've seen internally to your organization because of having embedded social purpose? Who would like to go?
Can I jump in for this one?
Yes, please.
One of my favorite topics. And I was just quickly, madly going, oh, Copilot, can you find me our latest employee survey scores just
Oh
to check
yeah.
that I'm giving them to you correctly. But for us, we we look at a couple of measurements when it comes to social purpose within our team. The first is, are you aware of are you, or I am aware of our social purpose. So do people even know what it is? So for us, we're at 6.55 out of 7. That's the organisational score, and we have
Wow.
really high participation and trust in our employee surveys, which is great. And then that obviously in itself doesn't, tell you all that much. But the second question we then ask is the organ or statement we make is the organisation puts social purpose into action. And for that, we've got a 6.29 out of 7. So there's a small gap between them, but those numbers have gone up every year that we've been on this social purpose journey. So obviously, it's nice to have a metric to kind of make you feel good about the progress that you're making. But kind of anecdotally, the pride, well, and we also measure pride actually, so that wouldn't even be anecdotally, but we've got a good sense of the pride that people feel about working here, also very high. And actually, those numbers go up and down together.
Uh-huh.
And they've always, over the 6 years I've been measuring them, or 5 years I've been measuring, they've joined each other. So yeah, it's constant work though internally, being able to ensure that people are aware of what your social purpose is, and believe that as an organisation you're doing what you said you'll do and you are truly living up to that. And for us, that's our vision as well. Our social purpose is our vision. It makes it very nice and clean and easy for us to talk about. If you look kind of globally at the number of people who are aware of an organisation's vision, it's it's very low. It's kind of in the 20%.
Wow.
So to have that kind of 6.55 out of 7 really gives you a good sense that people are aware of it. So you have those two parts to build there. What we found has helped that confidence and score go up over time is embedding it in so many of the things that we do. And Mary Ellen and Tess have both given us so many great ideas that we've stolen, and used as our own, but over that time. So one of the things Tessa was saying, you need to build up your kind of social purpose assets. So we did get a video put together. So everyone, as part of their induction, go through a social purpose induction session with me, which is great because, it's wonderful being a small organisation. I get to meet everyone, so does the CEO, and some of the other execs, but I get to really talk about how we put purpose into action and, discuss why they joined us. They will have seen our social purpose in our job description. It's a very key focus of it, because if we're not appealing to people who care and believe in our social purpose, we're going to struggle, for the rest of time. So for us, that's the embedding has started from making sure it's in our job adverts, it's in our interviews, it's in our induction. We've got a social purpose committee, it goes on and on. We measure it. And we really try and make those conversations relevant for the kind of least obvious people in the organisations.
Wow.
Very easy for us to see that there's a connection between purpose. When you've got someone on the front line speaking to a member, a working person who struggled to gain credit for reasons outside of their control,
Yeah.
and they're able to help those people, you can feel that real, like, instant connection. But what about if you're a person supporting the IT team, on the back end?
Right.
How do you make sure that they feel part of that overall system? So
Yeah.
that's a continuous challenge, but the numbers give us an indicator that we're doing an
Great. Wow.
increasingly successful
That's
job of
amazing.
drawing those
That's amazing.
parallels.
Yeah. Thanks, Kirsten. Liz, yes, I saw your hand.
Oh, yes. So just building on what Kirsten said, we started in very much the same place, which was having a lot of conversations with our employees, and embedding the purpose first through the people that really are the power behind our business. And we also started measuring. And so I mean, I love these results, so I'll share them. The first year we measured was 2023, and we had 14% of our workforce that was not at all engaged yet with the purpose. And when we measured again in 2024, that number dropped to
Oh,
0%. So that was pretty good.
okay.
And then we've seen an increase in those that are fully engaged. And we enjoy really high retention rates and a really high net promoter score. Those are the
Mhm.
metrics that we focus on relating to employees. Um,
That's amazing. In just 2 years.
yeah,
Incredible.
0%. It's not a normal KPI that you would want to see
Right.
celebrate.
Normally,
0%.
0% of people who are not engaged, right?
Exactly.
Yes.
Exactly. I'm
It
very
caught me
happy
for a
about
minute
that
there.
one.
Yeah.
I
Eliana?
can, yeah, I can go next, and it's really interesting. I believe when I was listening to Kristen a couple of years ago, that maybe I stole some ideas because it's everything I'm going to say now sounds like plagiarism. But yes, we have a survey. In fact, had survey for many years. We used to have a social impact, something similar but slightly different. We have a social benefit fund, and we do some charity work. However, this is a similar survey, similar results. What I noticed over the past 2 years with social purpose in particular, that we are also asking about trust, senior leadership, and that went up a little bit. We are measuring a scale of 1 to 10, so it went from 7, 7.5 last year, 8. So, and I'm happy with 8. I mean, I don't expect 10 out of 10. That would be also weird. We have a large group. We have one of these surveys. We have a 60 questions. We have a separate survey that just measure impact culture. So I took this Hofstede survey and I adapted for the kind of social purpose, culture driven elements. And then you can add some other descriptive questions. There is a huge part about trust, different questions that kind of reposition trust from different angles. And at the end, you are pretty accurate around that piece. And I guess this is also important because the industry, we are in this interpretation translation industry. So accuracy is super important for everybody. So I guess people also are very good with surveys and words. So we are really scrutinized about how we ask these questions. So,
And,
and I'm getting a lot of feedback on this is not a good way, and you have to take this more from different angle. But it's really good that also show you engagement. People want this service to be really kind of,
yeah.
reflective of what is happening. And it's true, as my colleague said, I guess if when you start measuring, you're going to see the change. And then people, when they engage with the survey, it's also depending how you're going to position your questions. So I also found if I provide some of our materials that we worked on in a previous year, they're going to stop for a moment and reflect and give me a different kind of feedback. Not necessarily always positive and better, but their mind is at least then engaged with the survey, not just one of the
Yeah.
multitasking
Yeah.
elements.
And the survey isn't, I mean, obviously you don't survey for surveying itself and just to gather data. It's to, yes, help people focus in on what your purpose is and really get a pulse for how well purpose is embedded in your organization and how it's impacting the employees. I love this idea of trust. Mo, I'm going to move to you, but if you have any, because I heard, I think from the other three already, that purpose builds trust. So if you have anything to say about that or anything else that we've already talked about, it's yours.
Yeah, I just was thinking, so we're about 3 years old, 3.5 years old. So we're still a very small team. We work with a lot of freelancers. So I think building purpose into, say, our staff and our freelancers, that's just kind of something that we're starting to do now. But looking at kind of that lens, we chatted a little bit about this before in one of our other conversations, and it was kind of like, who, how are the people finding us, right? So there's not a lot of hybrid publishers in Canada. Most of the publishers in Canada are supported by fairly large Canada Council grants. So we have a bit of a different business model because we do hybrid and also traditional books, and just kind of we had for our first year for our call for submissions, we said, oh, we like books like this and this and this. And then, the second we did two or three calls for submissions, our numbers were pretty low just for submitting. And the books were kind of, they were okay, right? Our first year was this was coming out of the pandemic. So I guess the first books that we published were in 2021 or 2022. So, and then really since we've done the purpose work, so then Tessa, is our spirit guide. We call Tessa our spirit guide, I should
That
say.
makes sense. I compute.
She's our social purpose spirit guide. And so so she said, it has to be all over the website. It has to be, you have to build it in the culture, right? You have to bake it in, right? So that's what we're trying to do now is bake it in. So even in our last call for submissions, we said, we publish with purpose. This is one of our big lines. And so it's people know. And I think that when people say, well, what do you publish and how do you publish? It's the first thing we talk about, right? So we exist to tell brave stories. And people have really been so receptive to that because everyone, the publishing business is scary out there because it's very competitive.
Mhm.
And you just don't know, you never think you have something that's good enough. And you never, as a writer, right? You're just where writers are, kind of not necessarily always very insecure, but it's very competitive, right? So you
Okay.
know that there's going to be better writers out there, right? So that idea of like, I have a story that deserves to be told, right? So I think that when after we put out our social purpose and then our next call for submissions, we had triple the submissions that call, and it was just really interesting, right? And because when we would ask people, well, how did you find us? They'd said, your social purpose really resonated with me. So it was even going out, even on our website and whatever was there, it was kind of giving people permission to say, my story is good enough,
Mm,
right? So I think that that was something that we felt really happy hearing that from people, and we started just get like stronger and stronger submissions, right? So
wow.
it's worked really well for us, like as an editorial team too, and just because we feel like, well, we were kind of, we're doing brave work by going out there in the world and being a very small publisher based out of Atlantic Canada, right? So we feel like you know, it's a bit of a karmic feeling, right? When you're getting like really good things back, right? And really good feedback, right? So it
Yeah.
feels really good.
Wow. Small but mighty. I
Small
love
but mighty.
that.
Yeah.
And it's so remarkable that just putting your purpose out there is attracting exactly the authors that you exist to support.
Yeah.
That's magic, honestly. Uh, Anyone else? What about external impact or Kirsten, you look like you
Yeah, I
wanted
can
to.
jump in.
Yeah.
I was just thinking, like, I'm so excited to hear that you got so many more submissions off the back of that. I mean, not just for you personally, but just generally thinking people do
Yeah.
really, really care. And I was
Yeah.
looking at earlier, like reports, looking at consumer reports and like how many people, I mean, there's reports coming out of our ears for this, but how many people do make decisions, consumer consumption decisions based on purpose-led brands. And apparently, I don't know how big this report is, so I have to go back to it. But one report, and this was only done last year, was saying 78% of consumers prefer purpose-driven brands and are willing to pay more for them. I'm one of those people, but I can also get kind of caught up in the throes of daily life, and I can be like, all right, I might just Amazon something in, and I have to try and stop myself and be like, okay, who am I purchasing from? And then occasionally I'll be like, right, time to read the Patagonia Impact Report, and then you're like, yes, I might not even want particularly to buy my coat from there based on aesthetics, or I might, but say I didn't, I'd just be so much more inclined to go and find something that I wanted, needed from an organisation like that. And I think so many of the people in this room can resonate, that will resonate with. And that's something that I mindfully want to teach my children as well. Kind of talk to them about the story behind the organisations. And one of the things that my kids, they're 8 and 10, says, Mummy works for a it's not a bank, but it's kind of like a bank, and they do good things. They're nice to people. Like it's a little bit lame. We can work on that, guys, but still, they're not just. This is a place that takes money and makes a bit more money from it. So yeah, I think there's huge value. And if we didn't go through the Social Purpose Institute, genuinely, we wouldn't have been as good at talking about ourselves, and the work that we do and marketing what we do in the way that we have. And just to give a little bit of context in terms of, anyone who's interested in media reach, we get about 95% of impact report coverage when you look at our total competitor group of credit unions alone, and that's because we so mindfully, and that's all earned media, so we don't pay for any of that media. So that it's earned for, meaning people are interested in the stories, the journalists think it's newsworthy enough to publish. Sorry, teaching grandma to suck eggs. If anyone's in media, you'll know way more about it than I. But yeah, for us, that's just been absolutely pivotal in getting that airspace. And like we all know, the better we do, the more good we can do.
Right.
And something that's really been on my mind recently, and this is probably exceptionally obvious to most people, so often when we're, producing new products, we do it through a social purpose lens, of course, and we want to see growth in those particular products and in our overall member base because we're appealing to people whose problems we're going to fix, working people who aren't looked after well by the financial institutions, for example. But also, we really need to be thinking about people who, like, are okay. Financially, they might not be struggling in the way that some of our members are, but they care so much about what we're doing for other people that they're buying in a kind of philanthropic way. So,
Wow.
our stories have got to reach both those audiences.
Yeah. Wow. Thanks, Kirsten. I just, the impact that your purpose is having internally and externally is just so remarkable. Liz.
Yeah, I mean, one of the stakeholders who was kind of represented in our process but not directly involved was my next generation, because ideally I would like to sustain the family ownership of our business. We have one child, so I don't know statistically what the probability is that that will work out. But when we were able to articulate our purpose, and especially I would say once we started reporting on it, using these excellent tools that are available from the Canadian Purpose Economy Project, it really helped us kind of crystallize our story. And a lot of this work is about storytelling. And my next generation really kind of lit up when he understood that we were, yes, wanting to be prosperous and profitable, but also wanting to make some positive changes happen that could have, affect him down the road, and wanting to course correct so that he has a healthy planet to live in. So,
Yeah. Yeah, I love that. The legacy, and being influenced by the next generations. It's so important. It's our duty, really. We have
yeah.
to, right? Yeah.
And yeah,
Yeah,
oh, go
Eliana,
ahead.
sorry, no, I was just going to ask you, you mentioned something about a social benefit fund. Can you talk a little bit more about that?
Yes, yeah, at some point in the past, when we started to create some surplus,
Yeah,
we said, well, we are funded for this or that, but what about people we want to help regardless? You know how government, they give you grants, it's all a
yeah,
service. So we said we're going to put part of this surplus into a fund, and we're going to fund whoever we want. So it's a first come, first serve. People who are not represented, mostly family, a lot of women, child custody cases,
yes,
all these things that will go through the cracks. And so we use half of the fund for that. It's very dear to our heart. This is how we stay connected to end beneficiaries.
mhm,
Stories that we hear every week, 3 to 4 stories, because this is how many requests are coming, and we can do a lot with a little money.
yeah,
And then we use one portion for advocacy. So yeah, we call it social benefit fund. But I'm thinking, actually, when we were applying for the grant, I said that we believe this is one of our best tools. Like even if
Yeah.
you have $1,000 to put into the fund, you start collecting stories. Who needs that? Who may need a free publishing? You may have matching funds for somebody else, but you really get into the grinds of what it means to be at the end receiving end. And now you have to start from the new. So I would strongly recommend to, experiment with something. It's good for publicity as well.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, no, I mean we have two, we all I mean of course we have so many more stories than books we can publish. So we're kind of looking at doing some different models like Kickstarters and that kind of thing where, it's we have it's a we, if there's no more budget, then what do you do then, right? So I think that's a really interesting idea
Mm.
of having, especially having, you know, Liz, you talked about stakeholders, right? So, I mean, even having stakeholders kind of weigh in and just kind of developing a bit of a framework for that. That sounds like an interesting thing to do.
I think we got clients also, and I'm thinking now back, we have this fund for 10 years. So
Mm,
we help the organization and they cannot do without us. And then after 3, 4 years, they get funding and they go back to us. So
yeah.
then we establish a metrics from the SBI back into paid business. And that
Mm,
happens not as often, but it does happen. So it is a circular in a way. You no strings attached at the beginning, but relationships are amazing.
yeah.
That is one of the things of beauty that I've always loved about social purpose. Is that it's not just good for society, it's also good for business, and it becomes that virtuous circle because the more your business grows for good, the more good you can do, and so on. So, profits are not evil with a purpose company. They
Yeah.
enable more purpose, work, and impact, right? Yeah, that's amazing. Liz, did you have something to add?
Well, I mean, I was reflecting on women and leadership, and I wanted to throw something out to the group to see if you agree, because I'm starting to really feel that the style of leadership that is required in um, in this multi-generational workforce that we have, especially with the younger generations coming up, uh, really needs to be very different than it was, for instance, when I first started working. And I think um, I think there's a desire among men to also um, break free from these restrictive gendered roles and be wholly kind of healthy and be able to express themselves as well. So I think we're at a stage now where what we like our lived experiences as women and as leaders really fits in well with what's required from the rising generations in the workforce. And I
Mhm.
wondered if anybody had a reflection on that.
I can maybe just quickly say we noticed, and this is something that really helped us. Thank you for this note. I also believe in gender balance. I think that we are helped by new generations, millennials, Gen Z coming in. They look for a different leadership.
Yeah.
And since we change our HR and recruitment practices, we're seeing a flood of people. Not only our staff like posting, but also board and committee members are different kind of philosophy, I would say. It's a value-driven conversation. I guess what we need to do, we need to sort of normalize be just this silence, not talking about social purpose is not viable anymore. This institutional silence should not be allowed. We should talk. We thank you to Purpose Pathways to keep these conversations alive. We have to state our commitments. We need to normalize conversation and language about purpose. We have to ask for leadership to learn complexity and kind of deal with complexity. It's okay to have two opposite thoughts in your head.
Paradox,
And
yeah.
right, you will not die if things are colliding. So all of this it's a normal. And the more we talk, the more other people will be encouraged to join the conversation. Otherwise, we are so alone and feel so,
Oh,
Yeah.
excluded.
yes,
And systems change is really complex work.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's true.
absolutely. Yeah, and none of this can be done in isolation.
Right.
No one business can change the world in the area that they can have the most impact by themselves. So, thank you for raising that, and thank you for raising women, the women in leadership question, Liz, because that's exactly where I was going. Mo, Kirsten, anything on that as a woman leading on purpose? What's your experience been?
Um, yeah, so I mean, as I said, I'm very new to the work, but I think that it is something that is really, it gives me a lot of hope for the future that, these conversations are happening now. And like Eliana said, that idea of like really normalizing purpose work, right? So maybe even in 5 years, my conversation will be different, and in 10 years, right? So like, it's interesting to come having gone through, like Ileana was saying at the beginning, where she didn't have the framework and she didn't have this, and they had to go out there and they had to go and invent the whole thing, right? And get the values out there and have everyone at the table say, yes, I do, right? So it's kind of like that when you have that buy-in from, your staff, and you have the buy-in from community members, then it's really very empowering, because you feel like, we're going to do this. Like, God damn it, we're going to do it together, right? So it really kind of like elevates that idea of like, we're going to get a lot done, right? It's exciting.
Yeah, I got goosebumps from that. Thank you. It's so true. Kirsten?
Yeah, just at Community Savings, our workforce is mainly and very predominantly female, and I'll go back to the
Ah,
fact that we've grown every year for the last 5 years, and you do the math. We're in a great position. I've never felt any push back on leadership style. I think we, really respect female leadership, but also acknowledge that that isn't the case everywhere. But we will proudly talk about the fact that I think we've got 66% of our team are female. The majority of our executive team, of our board, female. Branch managers, I think about 80% of them are female. Uh, and we'll proudly talk about that. And I think it's really important for us to do that, to be unapologetic in the way that we talk about purpose. It's not a nice to have, it's a business imperative. And women leading and talking about that, I do think is so critical. Um, and sharing each other's stories and getting on social media, and if there's a politician, a female politician that you love, because they're purpose led, call it out. Just keep sharing it, because I think that becomes very powerful. And people do still measure success not just by, you know, how much good you're doing, but they do measure it in terms of growth. We know, we haven't changed the world in those terms yet. So it's fine. And again, be unapologetic about the way that you talk about the correlation between the two, as well as what we talked about, our refusal. And I think that that's something women can really hang on to separate values from the decisions that we make. And obviously, role modeling that over just talking about it is the most powerful thing that we can do.
Yeah.
yeah. Yeah, and the more that businesses that come on board with social purpose, led by women or by men, we're going to build that critical mass so that we actually do start to find those solutions to the world's biggest problems. I think that's the only way, really, because business is where the innovation is, the risk taking is, the resources are, you know, business needs to come to the table on this. And I mean, I see you well, and us six women really believing that and understanding that and driving for that. Um, we're going to go to questions in a minute. So if uh, if you have a question, put it in the chat. But before we do that, I'm just going to give each of our panelists, ask them for two sentences, because I know, women have a lot to say sometimes, and so two, not just one, but two sentences of something that's burning on your mind after this conversation. Just jump in.
Well, I absolutely love the idea of measuring pride in business. So I did write that down as an action to add to our survey. Um, and I do
Nice.
feel that our people are proud of our business. So hopefully I'll get a good result.
Yeah. Who's
Um,
next?
I, I,
Eliana.
yeah, I was really interested in the impact. Kristen, you were talking about the impact measurement, marketing related cloud. I don't know how you call that. I'm going to reach out to you later. I would love to know more about this. I think this is very, very important metrics I never used, I don't know about, and will be very interested. We don't have a professional external marketing companies working for us, so I was not familiar with terminology.
Nice. Mo, you're on mute, Mo.
There I
There you
am. Hi. I was just going to say the same thing. I think that, I mean, I'm not necessarily a very big report person, but, I'm very big into storytelling. So I think that it's like when you can marry that data with, those actual concrete stories and the way that, you're going out there and changing the world, right? With whether it's on the corporate side, on the business side, or whether you're doing it on the consumer side. Both of those things I think are really important. So yeah, I'm gonna talk to Kristen after that call too. I think she has more to teach us for
I
sure.
don't know.
go.
I don't know that I'm the expert here, but for
You're
anyone
in
who
trouble. You're in
I
trouble.
love connecting with other social purpose enthusiasts.
Yeah.
Um, and I guess one final thought from me, because hopefully there are people on this call who are interested in doing some work with the likes of Mary Ellen and Tessa. At the beginning of our journey, I remember finding it incredibly intimidating, looking at like all the things we had to do, and thinking, shit, how are we going to have time to do this? And half it, I quite honestly, didn't even understand. And then, fast forward 5 years, and I genuinely say that Tessa's saying one step at a time, true. I can quite honestly say that the next steps seem very obvious to us. They really do. It's not like we have to sit there like squeezing our brains and trying to figure out where to go next. It's really just having the time. And if there's something that, I want our organization to do differently, and I'm sure a lot of people can relate, it's be more efficient. My team, the broader teams included, to free up some time for ourselves so we can spend some more time on doing what we know needs to be done from a
Mm.
social purpose perspective.
Well, thanks for that, Kirsten. And maybe I should let everybody know you've heard a lot about the Social Purpose Institute at the United Way BC. Tessa and I are carrying on its legacy
Mm.
because its doors have been shuttered. But we were both so just incredibly dedicated to continuing this work that we're doing it now under the Purpose Pathways brand. So
Well, and
um,
so many of your graduates are out there doing good work, so your
yeah.
impact is something you should be proud of as well.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. It feels great. We do it for that for sure. Yeah. Okay. Tessa, any questions that you can parse out for us from the chat? I see a lot
Right,
going
I'm
on
busy.
there. I have
I'm
not
busy
been
writing
looking.
to everyone in the chat.
Okay.
Um, yeah. So, I mean, Ingrid, I don't know if you're still here, but she wrote something that just said social purpose work is very relational and requires companies to build and nurture relationships and trust, building internally and externally. So, a lot of this work is invisible and can be done and seems to be done by women. And so, anyways, I'm just wondering if that resonates with any of the panelists here. You have 3 minutes.
And Joanne's hand is up as well, Tessa, if you did
Okay.
say, yeah.
Oh,
Um,
Joanne, is your hand up? Sorry, go
Oh,
ahead.
should I ask my question? Or
Yeah.
does someone want to ask? Okay, I'll be quick. So it kind of relates to what you just said. It's about finding your people outside of your work, your actual business or entity, and finding those right networks. So if you can speak to that, I mean, one that came to my head, and I don't know if you equate B Corps with purpose or what that relate, but like the B Corp network is one thing, but just any ideas from the panelists or from Tessa or Mary Ellen about where to find your purpose people.
Well, once we started leveraging our purpose, um, we found that our people found us as well. So, I mean, there is some of that that you can expect to happen. But for us, being in the industrial space with really large customers who are not consumers, they're B2B buyers, so they have a different kind of formula for how they make purchasing decisions. We decided to focus on the family business space. And family businesses make up the majority of businesses in Canada.
Mhm.
And often they're smaller, and they are also concerned about the next generation and legacy. And so when we are doing kind of what I would call, I guess, outreach work and trying to inspire others to explore purpose, that has been the first group of people that we have focused on. I'd love to be able to think in 7 generations, but thinking in one generation is already pretty challenging. So I think there's also a lot that can be learned from our Indigenous communities about thinking for the long term. But family businesses are already, it's part of their DNA to think longer than the next quarter.
Mhm. Awesome. Thank you.
Can I just pop in for 3 seconds? And I mean, I think we need to have our arms wide open. I think we heard a lot of the panelists talked today about the fact that purpose gave them the language that was in the shape around what was already there in a lot of ways. So I think there's a lot of businesses, B Corp, a lot of businesses who are really running their companies in that way. We're just like the chiropractors, right? Like we just give them that nudge to help give them that kind of alignment so that they can see that more clearly and talk about that maybe a little bit more effectively. But I think there's a lot of really great businesses out there. There's a big community. And what Liz said, we just have to, we just have to look for them and have them come to us.
Awesome. Thanks.
Well, guys, we're at 1 o'clock. Honestly, I'm sure you all feel it too. We could have probably talked for another hour or more. So maybe we'll have to do this again, but thank you so much